Good morning, Willard Wildcats. Happy Thursday, October 8th. Happy birthday today to Sophia P. We hope you have a wonderful birthday on this Thursday. Wildcats, today I'm going to read part of a chapter book to you. So for our kindergarten and first grade students, I hope you enjoy. For our upper grade students, I hope you enjoy. This book is called The Mouse and the Motorcycle by Beverly Cleary. I really enjoyed this book as a child. I really enjoy this book now because you can see from the picture, the mouse does things that humans do, like rides motorcycles. So it's a really fun take on what it might be like in the animal world. So I hope you enjoy today's chapter. I'm only going to read the first chapter called New Guess. I'm hoping that today's chapter sparks your imagination. So listen and listen very carefully, and I want you to imagine the story in your head. Pretend like it's a movie running as you just listen to the words. The New Guess. Keith, the boy in the rumpled shorts and shirt, did not know he was being watched as he entered room 215 of the Mountain View Inn. Neither did his mother and father, who both looked hot and tired. They came home from Ohio and for 5 days had driven across plains and deserts and over mountains to the old hotel in California, in the California foothills, 25 miles from Highway 40. So far, what do you know about the story? They're in a hotel. They've driven to an old hotel in California, and where have they come from? Ohio. So this is a really good reading strategy for you when you're reading, to stop and say something and think about what you've read. That way you comprehend it. So what I do sometimes is I read something and I might not remember what I read. So do you know what that means I have to do? Go back and read it. If you're always asking questions in your head, like being an inquirer, then it really helps you to make sure you understand. Now remember that first sentence? It said, he did not know he was being watched. Who do you think is watching him? We do have that picture clue. Maybe a mouse. The fourth person entering room 215 may have known he was being watched, but he did not care. He was Matt, 60 if he was a day, who at the moment was the bellboy. Matt also replaced worn out light bulbs, renewed washers and leaky faucets, and carried trays for people who telephone room service to order food from their rooms. Now, a bellboy is somebody who might come to your door if you're in a hotel and help take away trays or bring you trays of food. And sometimes prevented children from hitting one another with croquet mallets on the lawn behind the hotel. Now, Matt's right shoulder sagged with the weight of one of the bags he was carrying. Here you are, Mr. McGridley. Rooms 215 and 216, he said, setting the smaller of the bags on the luggage rack at the foot of the double bed before he opened the door into the next room. So how many hotel rooms is this family going to have? 2. I expect you and Mrs. Gridley will want room 216. It is a corner room with twin beds and a private bath. He carried the heavy bag into the next room, where he could be heard opening the windows. Remember, it's California and our air is usually pretty nice. Outside, a chipmunk chattered in a pine tree and a chickadee whistled. The boy's mother looked critically around the room 215 and she whispered, I think we should drive back to the main highway. There must be a motel with a vacancy sign someplace. Okay, so the mom saying that, is she liking this hotel? I don't think so. We didn't look long enough. Not another mile, answered Father. I'm not driving another mile on a California highway on a holiday weekend. Do you see the way that truck almost forced us off the road? Dad, did you see those 2 fellows on motorcycles? Began the boy and stopped, realizing he should not interrupt an argument. But this place is so old, protested the boy's mother, and we have only 3 weeks for our whole trip. We had planned to spend the 4th of July weekend in San Francisco, and we wanted to show Keith as much of the United States as we could. So remember when we thought Mom didn't like the hotel? Were we right? We have kind of some right there information. She says, we only have 3 weeks. She doesn't want to stay in this hotel. San Francisco will have to wait, and this is part of the United States. Besides, this used to be a very fashionable hotel, said Mr. Gridley. People come from miles around. 50 years ago, Mrs. Gridley said. And they came by horse and buggy. The bellboy returned to room 215. The dining room opens at 6:30, sir. There is ping pong in the game room, TV in the lobby, and croquet, which is a game you can play with mallets out in the grass, on the back lawn. I'm sure you will be very comfortable. Matt, who had seen guests come and go for many years, knew there were 2 kinds: those who thought the hotel was a dreadful old barn or of a place, and those who thought it charming and quaint, so quiet and restful. Of course, we will be comfortable, said Mr. Gridley, dropping off some coins into Matt's hand for carrying the bags. But this old hotel is positively spooky. Mrs. Gridley made one last protest. It's probably full of mice. That's what we call foreshadowing, because she says something and we know it's going to happen later because we know from the cover. Matt opened the window wide. Mice? Oh, no, ma'am. The management wouldn't stand for mice. I wouldn't mind a few mice, the boy said as he looked around the room at the high ceiling, the knotty pine walls, the carpet so threadbare that many of its roses had almost entirely faded, the one chair of the antimacassar on its back, the wash basin and towel racks in the corner of the room. I like it here, he announced. A whole room to myself. Usually I get a cot in the corner of the motel room. Okay, so who likes the hotel? The son likes the hotel. And who doesn't? Mom doesn't. And dad doesn't want to travel, right? So he wants to stay at the hotel they're at. His mother smiled, relenting. Then she turned to Matt. I'm sorry, it's just that it was so hot crossing Nevada, and we are not used to mountain driving. Back on the highway, the traffic was bumper to bumper. I'm sure we shall be very comfortable. So does Mom change her mind? She does. So it's really important to think about characters and as their opinions and their perspectives change, right? After Matt had gone, closing the door behind him, Mr. Gridley said, I need a rest before dinner. 400 miles of driving in that mountain traffic, it was too much. And if we are going to stay for a weekend, I had better unpack, said Mrs. Gridley. At least I'll have a chance to do some drip drying. That means she's going to do some wash. Alone in room 215 and unaware that he was being watched, the boy began to explore. You see the picture? And he's exploring what looks like a mouse hole. He got down on his hands and knees and looked under the bed. He leaned out the open window as far as he could and greedily inhaled deep breaths of pine-scented air. He turned the hot and cold water on and off the wash basin and slipped one of the small bars of paper-wrapped soap in his pocket. Under the window, he discovered a knothole in the pine wall down by the floor and, squatting, poked his finger into the hole. When he felt nothing inside, he lost interest. Next, Keith opened his suitcase and took out an apple and several small cars, a sedan, a sports car, and a red motorcycle, half the length of the cars, which he dropped on the striped bedspread before he bit into the apple. He ate the apple noisily in big chomping bites and then laid the core on the bedside table between the lamp and the telephone. Keith began to play, running his cars up and down the bedspread, pretending that the stripes on the spread were highways and making noises with his mouth. Vroom, vroom for the sports car, wee, wee for the ambulance, and for the motorcycle. Up and down the stripes. Do you ever play with something and make noises that you think it makes or that it does make? Once Keith stopped suddenly and looked quickly around the room as if he expected to see something or someone. But when he saw nothing unusual, he returned to his cars. Vroom, vroom, bang, crash. The sports car hit the sedan and rolled over off the highway stripe. The motorcycle came roaring to the scene of the crash. Keith, his mother called from the next room, time to get washed for dinner. So what do we know? What is his name? His name's Keith, right? Okay, Keith parked his cars in a straight line on the bedside table near the telephone. What do we see there? Where they looked like a row of real cars, only much, much smaller. The first thing Mrs. Gridley noticed when she and Mr. Gridley came into the room was the apple core on the table. She dropped it with a thunk into the metal wastebasket beside the table as she gave several quick little sniffs of the air and said, looking perplexed, "I don't care what the bellboy said. I'm sure this hotel has mice." "I hope so," muttered Keith. So do you see how the characters have two different opinions? And this will make the book interesting. Well, you let me know if you want me to read chapter 2 tomorrow, or I'll read a different book. So I hope you enjoyed chapter 1. Chapter 2 was called The Motorcycle. All right, Wildcats, remember, we are safe, respectful, and responsible. Have a wonderful day.